Alrighty, everyone. Well, thank you again for joining us. And again, I apologize for being a few minutes late. I had to restart my computer several times before I could get the video to work. But eventually it came up. So we are streaming on YouTube. We're on the Conference Bridge. And we're also recording as a backup. So technically we're in good shape today. I hope everyone had a wonderful and a blessed Thanksgiving. Certainly it was wonderful here. We had lots of family over, lots of children over, and it was just wonderful to be with everyone. To just take joy in the growth that we see in each other from the last year, from the last time we got together to do this. And I hope the same was true for each and every one of you. This morning, excuse me, I want to share some ideas. The title of the talk is, do you know how precious you are? Do you really understand how precious you are? And I mean that not in a narcissistic way of, look at me, how great I am. I mean that in a way of realizing the spiritual truth of what we are and of who we are. And I mean that in a way of experiencing the presence and the activity of God within us in real terms. Not as some abstract idea of this mystical power that's way out there somewhere, far, far away, but of the omnipresence that is everywhere at the same time. And that means it must be right where we are. And of nurturing that presence as a friend, as someone or something that loves us and we love back because we feel the oneness with it. The love is the experience of unity. Love is the experience of oneness. And do we recognize how precious we are to our Creator, to that which has created us out of itself for no need? That which has everything needs nothing, didn't need us, but created us out of itself, out of joy, out of celebration, out of a way of having a unique, individualized expression of itself to go forth and to discover things anew, and to see life through new and different eyes, and to celebrate the magnificence of that creation. I'm talking about getting in touch with that mystical presence within. So I invite you, as you listen today, if you can recall a time in your life when you felt closest to God, whatever your definition of God is, but a time when that presence was palpable and real to you. And it may have been just a fleeting moment, or it may have been a full-blown episode of cosmic consciousness or the mystical experience. As Richard Maurice Buck called it, cosmic consciousness. But I think each of us has had a glimpse in our lives, whether as a small child or as an adult. We've had a time when we felt closest to that presence. So I invite you today, if you can, to recall that time and to allow yourself to feel, and to let the words that you hear kind of stimulate ideas, but to let the feeling of your heart take over. Ernest Holmes tells us that when God speaks to us, God speaks through the language of the heart. So let these words fall upon your ears, but let God's words fall upon your heart. Let God's love fall upon your heart. So I want you to think, when we watch children grow, we've all had an experience, whether they be our own children or children in the family or just children of neighbors and friends. We've seen the little ones grow, And as they're growing, as they're an infant, all they want is their mommy. They're just attached to their mommy. Everything is mommy. Mommy is the safe haven. Mommy is the one who feeds them. Mommy is the one who protects them and cleans them. And as they grow out of the infant stage, where they just want to be held by their mother, as they become toddlers, they don't wander too far away at first. And whatever they need, they come back to mommy. Whatever they need, they come back to that presence of love in their lives, their mommy. If they find something that needs to be opened, they just come and they're holding out their hand and they come back to mommy. You want mommy to open that for you? And they shake their little head, yes. If they're tired and they want to sleep, they'll grab their blanket and their favorite stuffed toy and they'll come and they'll crawl up on mommy's lap. And there they are safe, and there they are loved, and there they are warm. And mommy will put the blanket over them and rock them in the chair, and they'll doze off to sleep. When they get a little bit older and they start wearing shoes, it's mommy who puts the shoes on the right feet for them, and it's mommy who ties the shoes for them, and then they go off and learn how to walk. And when their shoelace comes undone, they come right back to mommy. Mommy, tie my shoe for me. And mommy has to tie the shoe and get them all good to go, and then they go off. But not too far, but they go off. And if they need anything, or if they're frightened, they're hungry, they come back. They come back to mommy. They come back to that place of love, that place of safety, that place of warmth. But then something happens. Then they start to grow and they want to be on their own. They want to be independent. Probably around 2, I guess, is when it starts, or just a little bit before that. They learn the word no. And then they don't want mommy to do so much for them anymore. One day you'll see and they've got their shoes on and they've got them on the wrong feet. And they're tied all kinds of strange ways. And mommy will say, do you want me to put those on the right feet for you? No. No. Do you want me to tie them for you? No. And they go off strutting their stuff, as independent as can be, with their little shoes on the wrong feet, with the little laces trailing behind them, tripping all over themselves, falling down. Mommy will say, you sure you don't want me to tie those shoes? No. Don't tie those shoes. They're independent. They're growing. They're starting to create a sense of their own identity in life. An identity that is now a little bit more separate from, a little bit more distant from that mommy who they were inseparable from not too long ago. And this continues on. This continues on through their life, that they start becoming more and more independent. They explore things on their own. They want to do things by themselves. They don't want to be told. They want to figure things out. If you try to tell them something, if you try to help them with their homework and say, well, this is the way you solve that math problem, they'll say, I knew that. I knew that. And of course they didn't. If they had known it, they wouldn't have gotten the question wrong on the test. But they knew that. I know that. And then when they get to be teenagers, then of course it becomes even more prevalent. They start to really test the boundaries. They start to really see how far they can go. They're starting to prepare to go out onto life on their own. Desmond Morris, in his book, The Naked Ape, discusses the fact that we as human beings, we do not have a right of separation. We do not have really a right where children become adults. And it's awkward. There's no clear way for the kids to grow up. They want to act on their own. They want to be treated as adults, and they're not quite there yet. So we still treat them as children, and there's a lot of tension in the situation. But all that's happening is life is preparing them to go out and take the next generation forward, and preparing us to move on to other things after our child rearing years. So at some point, these these children become young adults, and as they go through life, it seems to them that they're picking up lots of ideas, and a lot of the ideas that they're picking up are just not true. You know, they're trying to figure out who they are, and everybody has an opinion. You know, you're kind, you're mean, you're short, you're tall, you're skinny, you're heavy. All of these different things that these kids hear about themselves as they're growing up. And it's as if when they left home that they put a backpack on, and everywhere they went somebody took a rock, and that rock was really that person's stuff, that person's kind of twisted idea of life, maybe that person's disappointments, maybe that person's anger or frustration. But each person takes that rock and just puts one rock in the backpack. You're not good enough rock, or you're not smart enough rock, or you'll never amount to anything kind of rock. All these different disparaging things that we hear as we growing up. You know, I can't play sports. I'm not talented enough. I can't solve math problems. All these different things, excuse me, tend to go into this backpack. So by the time they become close to middle age, the pack is pretty heavy. And they're still trying to find themselves. They're still trying to figure out, who am I? You know, why am I here? Where am I going? And they've got all of these ideas that they've picked up along the way that are now clouding the picture, clouding their thought. And they want to go back home. Not in the sense of going back home and crawling up on mommy's lap with a blanket and a teddy bear, but to go back and to find that sense of peace and that sense of belonging, that sense of oneness, to find that sense of love that said, you know, I love you just as you are. You're precious to me. I care for you. I'll look out for you. And I don't want anything from you. I just want to be with you. So it is this preciousness or this feeling of preciousness that we start to seek, I think, when the spiritual awakening hits people, when the rat race of life is enough, when the struggle to get more stuff and better jobs and all those things becomes enough. At that point, I think individuals go looking for themselves. Sometimes it happens around 30, sometimes it happens around 40, sometimes later. Usually we call it the midlife crisis. We want to go home. Ram Dass said something so beautiful. He said, you know, we're all just walking each other home. That's all we're doing here on this earth. I want you to think about how short our lifespans are compared to the lifespan of the universe or the galaxy that we live in. You know, they think the Earth is maybe 4 billion years old or 4.8 billion years old, or the universe itself is 15 billion years old. I mean, we can't even comprehend a billion. It's just, you know, it's a one followed by a lot of zeros. We can't even get our mind around something lasting that long. And who knows how much longer it will go on. And here we are for 100 years. We come and we go. A brief instant in time. A blink of the eye on the time scale of the universe. And why are we here? We're just walking each other home. We're trying to help ourselves and to each other find that peace, that presence, that unconditional love, the presence and the activity of God within us. See, in the olden days, people would call that heaven. We're all trying to get to heaven. But heaven is not, I'm sorry, I just had a beep in my ear. I thought the call dropped. Heaven is not a place. It's not a faraway place. It is a state of mind. It is a state of consciousness. It is a way of being. I don't know if you saw in the news this week, Pope Francis came out and said hell's not a place, with burning and all of that. And of course that's going to shock some folks who are fundamentalists. But heaven and hell are states of mind. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to discover that kingdom, that place, that heaven. Now I want to stop right here for just a moment, because if you've been following along what we're talking about, there's two stories in the Bible that reflect this. One is the story of the Garden of Eden, when there was a time when we were all in the presence of God, just as the infant was with its mommy. It's unconditional love, it's protection. We all existed in that state of oneness, in that state of unity. That's what the garden represents to us. And we left. We had to go out and assert our independence, and we left the garden. We left that feeling. And we had to go out and make our own mistakes. And sometimes we did things that, with hindsight, we certainly would not do over again. But we've done things. We've experienced things. People have told us things about ourselves, and we have collected all of these false ideas, and now we are trying to work our way back to the garden. Back to the garden. And the other story is, of course, the story of the prodigal son. And the prodigal son was living with his father, who was a man of means and well off, and the son wasn't happy, and he too wanted to assert himself. And he wanted his inheritance. He didn't want to wait for his father to die. He wanted it now. He wanted his share of the family fortune now. So he took the money and he left and he squandered it. But he came to himself. At some point he realized that he needed to go back home. He needed to go back to that feeling of love, to that feeling of security. And he did. And the important thing about this story is that all the way home, he was beating himself up about how terrible he had been. But when he got there, the father never condemned him, never complained, never criticized. He said, "You are my son." And you were gone. And now you're home. So for each of us, then, there comes an awakening. There comes a point in time where we want to go back home. We want to go back to that peace. We want to go back to that feeling of unconditional love. And we have to recognize that that place is a place within. It is not out there. We are never going to find it out there. If we were to live here for another 1 billion years and we looked out there for 1 billion years, we would not find it. Because the only place we will find it is within. Is within our own consciousness. Is by discovering the preciousness that is already there. The love that is already there. The peace that is already there. So we ask, well, how do you do that? If that's what we're here for, is to walk each other home, and by that I mean to discover the peace of God within, to discover the preciousness of God within. If that's what we're here to do, how do we do it? We've gone through life on our own. We've asserted ourselves. We've kind of separated ourselves from that unconditional love in our consciousness. We've thought of ourselves as individual. We thought of ourselves as separate. We thought of ourselves as having to do it all on our own. Just as a little child thinks, well, I've got to put my shoes on all by myself. We've allowed our own experiences and our own decisions to put rocks in our backpack. We've allowed others to put rocks in our backpack, and now we got this load that we're carrying. And how do we walk home when we're carrying this load? Now, traditional popular psychology says, well, you have to find each rock in that backpack, and you have to look at it, and you have to figure out where you got it, and you have to somehow undo it and take them out one at a time and deal with them. But that's not true. You can do that. It takes a very long time. But you just take the backpack off. Dr. Holmes tells us that we should never forget that a positive thought will cancel out a negative thought. And therein is the power. A positive thought will cancel out a negative thought. We don't have to know where the negative thought came from. We don't have to know how long the negative thought has existed in our consciousness. We don't have to know who put it there and go back in time and undo the trauma. We simply have to change our view from the negative to the positive. It doesn't matter to the beam of light how long the room has been dark. If you turn on the flashlight, that beam will cut right through the darkness, and it is totally unaffected by the darkness. You don't hear the light going, oh my goodness, I've got to fight my way through all these shadows. You see, the shadows were not real. The shadows were only where light had been blocked. And once the light is turned on, the shadows disappear. And once we turn on the positive thoughts of our mind, the thoughts of being home, not of going home, but of being home, of being in the presence, of experiencing the love of God, then all of the ideas to the opposite will dissolve into the nothingness from which they came. So we can start by looking for that preciousness within. Where did this life come from? Did you create it yourself? You did not. Is your life your body? It is not. The body that you had as a child is gone. The body that you had as a teenager is gone. Where did it go? It turned to dust. We wiped it off the bookshelves with a dust mop. Every 2 years, every cell in our body has changed out. Even the bones are new. So our life is not our body. Our life is not, we are not our body. But our body is something that we observe, something that we witness, something that we experience. But what is that we that experiences the body? What is the we that has experienced growing up? It is consciousness. And did you create your consciousness? You did not. Where did it come from? And the only place that it could have come from is that it is a very piece of God, a very part of the consciousness of the divine. This is why the mystic would say, of my own self I can do nothing. Why the mystic would say, when you're looking at me, you're looking at the Father in heaven. You're looking at God. That was the terms Jesus used for God. So now we come to realize that whatever I thought about myself, whatever others thought about me, is mostly untrue. If they thought that I was a living expression of the divine, going through the process of figuring out who I was, and knowing that someday I would get it, well, then they may have been correct. But if they thought I was too short or too tall or too this or too that, if I thought that I was independent and had to do it all on my own, all of these human ideas, then they were wrong. So we let them go. We let them dissolve into the nothingness from which they came. And we be still, and we know the truth and the presence within. We recognize that we could not think if there were not a divine thinker moving through our personality. That we could not love if there were not a divine lover within us. And as we do this, as we go within, and as we start to recognize that the omniscience, the omnipotence, and the omnipresence of the divine is right here, right now, we recognize that there's no place to go. There is nothing to do. We must just be still and know. Nurturing this presence within us, taking ourselves out of the human way of thinking, of separateness, of lack, of limitation, of good, of evil, of all of those restricting ideas, of moving ourselves beyond ideas. Rumi said, beyond the ideas of right doing and wrong doing. There is a field and I will meet you there. We want to meet Rumi in that field. We want to stop thinking. We want to start being. Dr. Holmes tells us that we should treat this presence as a real entity, as a friend. Perhaps as the mommy that we can go back to and feel that unconditional love. One who has always been with us. One who can never leave us. One who is there to guide us and to guard us. And that's our guardian angel for those who grew up in traditions of having a guardian angel. It's right there. It always has been. It always will be. And as we start to really feel this, as we start to really get into this, then we start to realize how precious we are. Not because of what we have done, but because of what God as us is. And this is the true humility. This is not a false humility. We've learned how to have false humility in our lives. When we really want something, say, no, I don't want that. False humility. But a true humility of recognizing that of my own self, I do nothing. Now I can recognize how precious I am. Every beat of my heart is a gift of God. A gift of God as itself to the universe. Through me. As me. Every breath I take is a gift of God. Sustaining the life of this body, which is but a temporary home, but a gift to the universe. For God loves us by means of each other. God hugs us by means of each other. When we reach out and touch another's hand, it is the loving hand of God touching the loving hand of God. Every meal we eat is a gift of God. A gift to the preciousness of the life which uses this body, which does God's work and God's service here on earth. So we stay along these lines of thinking, turning totally within, ignoring completely the without, because the without is nothing but the drama of consciousness of people trying to figure out who and what they are. And they'll never figure it out there. But instead we turn within. We go to the secret place within. We close the door of our prayer closet. We go to the kingdom within. And we find the divine lover has been waiting in quiet repose for us to come and crawl up on its lap and put our head on its chest and to feel the unconditional love from which we have been separated only in consciousness, only by ideas. So I invite you to take some time today to nurture yourself, to love yourself, to go within to that sacred place, to find that unconditional love, to reach out and embrace, and to tell it you're home. This is the journey. This is why we have come. To go out on our own and create an individualized personality, an individualized expression of God, and then to come back home. To let its love express through us uniquely, with the recognition and the understanding that we are not doing it, but the Spirit within is. So take some time, look in the mirror, close your eyes, feel the unconditional love, and to recognize that that is your preciousness. That is the truth of who and what you are. No matter what anyone, including yourself, has ever told you. And so it is.